My name is Aurelius Parker, 35 years old, and I thought paying $45,000 for my stepsister Jordan's wedding would finally heal our fractured relationship. I was wrong. As my wife Amelia and I pulled up to the lavish venue with our children, Noah and Sophia, a security guard stopped us. In his hands were printed photos of my kids with bold red letters, "Do not admit." My own flesh and blood had banned my children from a wedding I paid for. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and subscribe as I reveal what happened next. I should start at the beginning, so you understand why this betrayal cut so deep. My parents divorced when I was 10 years old. It was messy, like most divorces, but I stayed with my mom, Diane. When I turned 12, she remarried Richard Thompson, a businessman who seemed nice enough at first. He was charming, attentive to my mom, and tried to bond with me through fishing trips and baseball games. Looking back, I realize those efforts only lasted a few months. Jordan came along when I was 15. Despite the typical teenage angst, I adored my baby sister from the moment I first held her. Her tiny hands would wrap around my finger, and she would stare up at me with those big brown eyes. As she grew, I became her protector and playmate. I taught her to ride a bike, helped with her homework, and scared away the monsters under her bed. Those early years were good ones. Things changed when Jordan turned 7 or 8. I noticed she started competing with me for everything. If I got a B+ on a test, she needed an A. If Mom complimented my help around the house, Jordan would immediately clean the entire kitchen. Small things at first, but the pattern became clear. My mother began to change too. Diane had always been loving toward me, but as Jordan grew, I witnessed a shift in her attention. When Jordan would throw tantrums about not getting her way, Mom would cave immediately. When I would achieve something significant, like making honor roll, the celebration would be minimal compared to when Jordan would accomplish even smaller feats. Jordan needs extra encouragement. Mom would explain when I questioned the disparity. You were always so independent, Aurelius. Jordan is different. She needs more support. Richard never made any effort to hide his preference. I was the stepchild. Jordan was his flesh and blood. He would take her shopping for new clothes while I wore the same sneakers until they had holes. He funded her dance lessons, summer camps, and later her first car while I worked weekends at the local grocery store to save for college. I left home at 18 for university, working 2 part-time jobs to support myself. Those years were tough, but formative. I learned self-reliance and developed a strong work ethic. After graduating with a business degree, I worked my way up at a consulting firm before eventually starting my own company at 28. Those early entrepreneurial years were lean and stressful, but the business gradually gained traction. During that time, I met Amelia. She walked into my office, inquiring about consulting services for her small graphic design company. Instead, she ended up becoming both my wife and business partner. With her creative talent complementing my business acumen, our company flourished. We were married within 2 years of meeting, and she became my rock, my confidant, and my best friend. Noah came along a year later, followed by Sophia 2 years after that. My children brought a joy and purpose to my life that I never knew existed. Every milestone from their first steps to their first days of school filled me with indescribable pride. Unlike my own childhood, I vowed they would always know they were loved unconditionally. Throughout these years, my relationship with Jordan continued to deteriorate. She refused to attend our wedding, claiming she had a dance competition that weekend. Later, I discovered there had been no competition. She never sent gifts when my children were born, and continuously declined invitations to birthday parties and holiday gatherings. When she did interact with my family, Jordan was cold toward Amelia and barely acknowledged my children. Once, when Noah was 4, he excitedly showed Jordan his new toy dinosaur. She barely glanced at it before saying she was busy on her phone. The hurt look on my son's face haunted me for weeks. I tried countless times to mend our relationship. I would send thoughtful birthday and Christmas gifts, make phone calls to check in, and attempt to include Jordan in family events. Each effort was met with either lukewarm response or outright rejection. "Why do you keep trying?" Amelia would ask after particularly hurtful incidents. "She clearly doesn't want a relationship." "She's my sister," I would reply. Family is family. 3 years ago, during a rare Thanksgiving gathering where Jordan actually showed up, she introduced her new boyfriend, Ethan Williams. Tall, well-groomed, and soft-spoken. Ethan was the only son of Harrison Williams, a prominent real estate developer with properties across 3 states. Ethan seemed genuinely kind, if somewhat reserved, and I watched how he looked at my sister with sincere affection. What concerned me, however, was how Jordan looked at him. There was calculation behind her smiles. Throughout dinner, she continually steered the conversation toward the Williams family wealth, their vacation home in the Hamptons, and the charity galas they attended. Ethan would shift uncomfortably during these moments, attempting to change the subject, but Jordan was relentless. "Can you believe I might be planning fundraisers alongside the governor next year?" Jordan gushed, clutching Ethan's arm. "The Williams family has such important connections." I caught Amelia's eye across the table. She raised an eyebrow slightly, and I knew we were thinking the same thing. Jordan wasn't in love with Ethan. She was in love with what he represented. A ticket to the life of luxury and social status she had always craved. That night, as Amelia and I drove home with our sleeping children in the back seat, I expressed my concerns. "I worry she's using him," I said. "Ethan seems like a decent guy. Not your circus, not your monkeys." Amelia replied using her favorite expression for situations beyond our control. "Ethan's a grown man. He'll figure it out eventually." Little did I know that Jordan's relationship with Ethan would soon pull me into the most painful family drama I had ever experienced. About 18 months after that Thanksgiving dinner, Jordan and Ethan got engaged. He proposed with a diamond ring that she made sure everyone knew was 3 carats and flawless. Photos flooded social media, each caption more boastful than the last. Jordan called me specifically to gloat, though she framed it as sharing her joy with family. "The Williams have a 7-figure wedding budget," she told me over the phone. "Can you believe it, Aurelius? I'm going to have the kind of wedding people read about in magazines." I congratulated her sincerely. Despite our troubled relationship, I wanted her to be happy. But something in her voice sounded less like joy and more like vindication. The following week, I received a distraught call from my mother. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Mom, slow down." "What happened?" I asked, immediately concerned about a health issue or accident. "It's the wedding," she sobbed. "Richard and I can't afford what Jordan needs." After calming her down, I learned that the Williams family wanted an extravagant destination wedding at an oceanfront resort in California. While they were covering many expenses, tradition dictated that the bride's family handle certain aspects, including the reception and rehearsal dinner. These costs alone were estimated at over $40,000. "Richard's business has been struggling for years," my mother confessed something I hadn't known. "We remortgaged the house last year. We have nothing left to give." I felt a twinge of resentment. For years, they had prioritized Jordan's needs and wants over mine. Now they were facing the consequences of that pattern. But before I could fully process this information, my mother played her trump card. "Jordan will be devastated. This wedding means everything to her. You know how sensitive she is, Aurelius. I'm afraid of what she might do if her dreams are crushed." 3 days later, Jordan showed up unannounced at my front door. It was nearly 9 in the evening. Amelia was upstairs, reading bedtime stories to the kids. Jordan's eyes were red and puffy from crying mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Can I come in?" she asked in a small voice I hadn't heard since she was a child. I led her to the living room where she collapsed onto the sofa and burst into fresh tears. "Mom told me they can't afford the wedding," she choked out between sobs. "Ethan's family already booked the venue and sent out save-the-date cards. I can't ask them to scale back now. Ethan would be so disappointed in me." I offered her a glass of water and sat opposite her. "Jordan, sometimes life doesn't work out exactly as we plan. I'm sure Ethan would understand a more modest celebration." She shook her head violently. "You don't get it. His cousins all had these incredible weddings. His sister got married at the Plaza Hotel last year. If my family can't match that, they already look down on us, Aurelius. I can't give them more reason to think I'm not good enough for their son." For the next hour, Jordan poured her heart out in a way she never had before. She spoke about feeling inadequate next to the Williams family's wealth and status, how she feared Ethan might reconsider their relationship if she couldn't provide the wedding experience his family expected. Then she said something that caught me completely off guard. "I've always looked up to you, you know," she said, wiping her eyes. "You built something from nothing. You have everything I wanted. Success. A perfect family. Respect." I was stunned. For years I had only felt her resentment, never admiration. "This could be our chance," she continued, reaching for my hand. "To finally be real siblings. To heal all the bad stuff from the past. If you help me with this wedding, I promise things will be different between us." After Jordan left, I sat alone in the dark living room for a long time. Amelia found me there and listened as I relayed the conversation. "What are you thinking?" she finally asked. "I'm thinking about helping her," I admitted. "Paying for the wedding." Amelia sighed. "That's a lot of money, Aurelius. Money that could go toward the children's college funds or expanding the business." "I know. And Jordan hasn't exactly been Sister of the Year," she continued cautiously. "What makes you think this will change anything?" I thought about Jordan as a toddler following me around the house, declaring Relius my hero in her baby voice. I thought about teaching her to swim, her tiny arms clinging to my neck in terror before finally letting go, and paddling on her own, her face lighting up with pride and accomplishment. "Everyone deserves a second chance," I said finally. "Maybe this is ours, to be a real family." Amelia squeezed my hand. "Just be careful. Don't expect too much." And we set a firm limit on how much we contribute. The next day, I met with Jordan and the wedding planner, a sharp-dressed woman with a permanent smile and a tablet full of spreadsheets. As we went through the estimates, my stomach tightened. The final figure for the components the bride's family traditionally covered came to $45,000. "I'll cover it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The joy on Jordan's face seemed genuine. She threw her arms around me in a rare display of affection. My mother, who had joined us for the meeting, cried happy tears. "You won't regret this," Jordan promised, squeezing my hands. "This means everything to me." In that moment, seeing her smile, I believed I was making the right decision. I felt warmth spreading through my chest, a hope that perhaps this generous act could heal 2 decades of dysfunction and distance. Perhaps money, which had always been a source of tension in our family, could now become a bridge to reconciliation. How terribly wrong I was. The 6 months leading up to the wedding were some of the most stressful of my life. What started as a gesture of goodwill quickly devolved into a nightmare of endless demands and constant changes. Jordan texted or called nearly every day with small adjustments to the plans, each one adding hundreds or thousands to the total bill. The champagne we had agreed on was no longer good enough. The floral arrangements needed to be more elaborate. The band needed to be replaced with a more prestigious musical group that had performed at a celebrity wedding. The budget we agreed on doesn't cover these extras, I reminded her gently after a particularly expensive change request. It's just a few thousand more, she replied dismissively. Your company must be doing well. What's the big deal? Amelia, who handled our household finances, grew increasingly concerned. This isn't about the money anymore, she told me one night. It's about respect. Jordan isn't treating this like a generous gift. She's treating it like an entitlement. I couldn't disagree, but I was committed now. Checks had been written, contracts signed, and part of me still clung to the hope that once the wedding stress passed, Jordan would remember her promise about healing our relationship. A month before the wedding, we were invited to dinner with the Williams family. Ethan's parents, Harrison and Lydia Williams, hosted us at their sprawling suburban estate. The property was impressive, without being ostentatious, speaking to old money rather than new wealth. Harrison Williams was a tall, imposing man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. Lydia was elegant in an understated way, her warmth seeming genuine if somewhat reserved. Throughout the evening, I noticed Harrison watching me, evaluating. The conversation repeatedly turned to my business, with pointed questions about revenue streams, client retention rates, and 5-year growth projections. It felt less like friendly interest, and more like a business assessment. And you're covering the reception costs entirely. Harrison asked during dessert, his tone casual, but his eyes sharp. Before I could answer, Jordan jumped in. Aurelius has been incredibly generous. He wants everything to be perfect for me. Harrison nodded slowly. Family supporting family. That's how it should be. Something in his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced by the dynamic he was observing. As the wedding date approached, Jordan's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would oscillate between effusive gratitude one moment and demanding entitlement the next. During a cake tasting where I was footing the bill for an unnecessarily elaborate 6-tier creation, I overheard her talking to one of her bridesmaids in the restroom. Aurelius owes me this, she said, unaware. I was in a nearby stall. After all those years of Mom loving him more, of being the golden child, he can finally do something useful for me. I froze, hurt spreading through my chest. This didn't sound like someone seeking reconciliation. It sounded like someone executing a long-planned revenge. The dress fitting was another red flag. I had expected my children, Noah and Sophia, to be included in the wedding party as a ring bearer and flower girl. When I mentioned this to Jordan, she looked at me like I had suggested releasing snakes at the ceremony. The wedding is adults. Only, she stated flatly. No children. But they're your niece and nephew, I protested. Surely an exception could be made. No exceptions, she insisted. Children are unpredictable and noisy. They'll ruin the sophisticated atmosphere we're creating. Later that week, I discovered through my mother that several other children, all from the Williams side, were included in the wedding party. When confronted, Jordan claimed these were different circumstances without elaborating. The invitations went out without me seeing them first, despite my financial contribution. When our copy finally arrived, I was surprised to see that it was addressed only to Mr. and Mrs. Aurelius Parker, with no mention of our children. Maybe she really is planning an adults-only event, Amelia suggested, always willing to give the benefit of the doubt. But the following weekend, while visiting my mother, I spotted the guest list on her kitchen counter. Scanning it quickly, I noted at least 8 children's names, included all from Ethan's side of the family. When I tried to discuss these issues with Jordan, she became defensive and deflective. You're just trying to make this about you, she accused. This is my wedding day. Stop trying to control everything just because you're paying for some of it. Some of it. As if $45,000 was a minor contribution. Amelia grew increasingly uneasy as the wedding approached. "I have a bad feeling about this whole thing," she confided one night. "The way Jordan's been acting, the secrecy, the constant changes. Something isn't right." I sighed, rubbing my temples where a stress headache had taken up permanent residence. "It's just pre-wedding anxiety. Everyone gets a little crazy, planning their big day." "This is more than wedding jitters," Amelia insisted. "I think you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that things might not go as you hope." I should have listened more carefully to my wife's intuition. But I was so invested both financially and emotionally in the idea that this extravagant gift would finally earn me the sister I had always wanted. I couldn't see what was right in front of me the entire time. Jordan had never intended for this wedding to heal our relationship. She had other plans entirely. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect weather. Sunshine streamed through our bedroom windows as Amelia and I got dressed in our formal attire. I had purchased a new suit for the occasion, dark blue, with a subtle pattern. Amelia wore a deep green dress that complemented her auburn hair, which she had styled in an elegant updo. Despite the tension of the past few months, I felt a sense of anticipation. Today could be a new beginning for our family. Once the stress of wedding planning was behind us, perhaps Jordan would remember her promise about healing our relationship. Noah and Sophia were particularly excited. Though disappointed about not being in the wedding party, they were still thrilled about attending their first grown-up event. Noah, at 8 years old, looked adorably uncomfortable in his little suit and clip-on tie. 6-year-old Sophia twirled in her pink dress, asking Amelia if she looked like a princess. Even prettier, Amelia assured her, adjusting the ribbon in her hair. I helped the kids into our SUV, making sure their seat belts were secure before we set off for the coastal resort where the wedding would take place. The venue was about an hour's drive from our home, an exclusive property featuring panoramic ocean views and meticulously landscaped gardens. During the drive, I found myself reflecting on my complex feelings. Despite everything, I felt proud to have contributed to Jordan's special day. The money was substantial, but family was worth it. At least that's what I kept telling myself. "Daddy, will Aunt Jordan be happy to see us?" Sophia asked from the back seat. The innocent question caused a brief pang in my chest. "Of course, sweetheart. She'll be very happy." Amelia gave me a sidelong glance, but said nothing. The resort appeared on the horizon, its white buildings gleaming in the sunlight. As we approached the entrance, I could see guests in formal attire making their way toward the ceremony area. White chairs were arranged in neat rows facing an arch decorated with flowers and flowing fabric. Beyond that, the blue expanse of the ocean stretched to the horizon. I pulled into the designated parking area, helped my family out of the car, and straightened Noah's tie one last time. "Everyone ready?" I asked with forced cheerfulness. We walked toward the main entrance where a sign directed wedding guests to follow a path around the side of the building. As we rounded the corner, I noticed a large man in a black suit, standing at a checkpoint of sorts. He had an earpiece and a clipboard, looking more like security than a wedding usher. "Names?" he asked gruffly as we approached. "Aurelius Parker," I replied. "I'm the bride's brother." The man glanced down at his clipboard, then back up at us with a frown. He reached into a folder beside him and pulled out what appeared to be photographs. My stomach dropped as I realized what I was looking at. They were pictures of Noah and Sophia, clearly taken from social media posts. Across each photo, someone had printed in bold red letters, "Do not admit." "I'm sorry, sir," the security guard said, not sounding sorry at all. "I don't have you on the approved guest list, and I have specific instructions regarding these children." I stared at him in disbelief, my mind struggling to process what was happening. There must be some mistake. "I'm the bride's brother. I paid for this wedding." "No mistake, sir. My instructions are very clear." He tapped his earpiece. "I'll need to call Miss Thompson to clear this up." While we stood there, humiliated other guests walked past us into the venue, some casting curious glances our way. Noah pressed against my side, sensing the tension. Sophia's lower lip began to tremble. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 2 minutes, Jordan appeared. She looked stunning in her wedding gown, a custom designer creation that I had paid for. Her makeup was flawless, her hair arranged in an elaborate updo, adorned with tiny flowers. But her expression was cold, almost smug. Jordan began gesturing to the guard in the photos. "What's going on?" She crossed her arms. "Exactly what it looks like. You're not welcome here." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "What are you talking about? I paid for half of this wedding." A thin smile spread across her face. "Yes, thank you for that. I have what I needed from you." Guests were starting to notice the confrontation, some slowing their pace to watch. Amelia put protective arms around our children, who looked increasingly confused and frightened. "Jordan." I lowered my voice, trying to stay calm. "If this is some kind of joke, it isn't funny. We're family. Family." She laughed, a harsh sound, devoid of humor. "You were never my family. You were the obstacle, the one who always got everything. Mom's love, Dad's attention, academic success, perfect little life, with perfect little wife, and perfect little kids." Her voice dripped with venom. I had never heard her speak this way. Never seen this level of hatred in her eyes. "I've waited a long time for this moment, Aurelius. To finally show you how it feels to be excluded, to be the afterthought." I stood there speechless with shock. All those months of planning the generous financial gift, the hope for reconciliation, it had all been a setup for this public humiliation. But the money I finally managed to say, "Why take my money if you planned this all along?" Her smile widened. "Because I could. Because watching you drain your accounts for me thinking it would buy my affection has been the most satisfying experience of my life." Noah began to cry softly. "Daddy, why does Aunt Jordan hate us?" Jordan's gaze flickered to my son, not a hint of remorse in her expression. "Nothing personal, kid. You just happen to be his." My mother appeared behind Jordan, her face pale. For a moment I thought she would intervene, would stand up for me and my children. Instead, she looked at me with pleading eyes. "Aurelius, please don't make a scene. Just go home. This is Jordan's day." The final betrayal. My own mother, choosing once again to prioritize Jordan's feelings over mine, even in this moment of cruelty. I felt Amelia's hand on my arm, steady and grounding. "We're leaving," she said, her voice tight, with controlled anger. Now, looking into Jordan's triumphant face, I realized the truth. There had never been any hope for reconciliation. The past 6 months had been an elaborate scheme to take my money and then deliver this final emotional blow. "Goodbye, Jordan," I said quietly. "I hope this moment gives you whatever you think you needed." I turned away, guiding my family back toward our car. Behind us, I heard Jordan call out to the security guard, "Make sure they leave the property entirely." The drive home was excruciating. Noah continued to cry quietly in the back seat, periodically asking what he had done wrong. Sophia had fallen into confused silence, her earlier excitement completely extinguished. Amelia was furious, occasionally muttering phrases like, "Unbelievable," and "never again" under her breath. I drove mechanically, my mind replaying the scene over and over, the hatred in Jordan's eyes. My mother's refusal to intervene, the humiliation of being turned away from an event I had largely funded. But worst of all was the pain inflicted on my children. In my rearview mirror, I could see their dejected faces, the confusion and hurt in their eyes. They had done nothing wrong, yet they had been treated as unwelcome intruders, their very presence deemed offensive. In that moment, something hardened inside me, a resolve that whatever happened next, I would protect my true family, the one sitting in this car with me, from ever being hurt like this again. We arrived home in silence. The beautiful day that had started with such optimism now felt mocking in its perfection. Amelia unlocked the front door while I helped the children out of the car, their movements sluggish with disappointment. Once inside, Noah looked up at me with reddened eyes. "Dad, why does Aunt Jordan hate us? Did I do something wrong?" I knelt down to his level, putting my hands on his small shoulders. "No, buddy. You didn't do anything wrong at all. Sometimes adults have complicated feelings that have nothing to do with you." "But she had pictures of us with 'do not admit' on them," Sophia chimed in, her voice small. "That means she doesn't like us." I pulled both children into a hug, fighting back my own emotions. "This is about old stuff between me and Aunt Jordan. It has absolutely nothing to do with you two. You're amazing, wonderful kids, and anyone who doesn't see that is missing out." Amelia had disappeared into the kitchen, and I could hear cabinets opening and closing with more force than necessary. After making sure the kids were settled with a cartoon in the living room, I joined her. She was gripping the edge of the counter, her knuckles white. "I want to call your mother right now and give her a piece of my mind. How could she just stand there? How could she let Jordan treat our children that way?" "It wouldn't help," I said wearily. "It would only escalate the situation." "What situation?" Amelia's voice rose. "The situation where your sister took $45,000 from us and then banned us from the wedding. The situation where your mother stood by and let it happen. That situation." I couldn't argue with her. The betrayal was complete and devastating. But right now, my priority was damage control, especially for Noah and Sophia. "Let's focus on the kids," I suggested. "They're confused and hurt. Let's try to salvage the day for them at least." Amelia's expression softened. She took a deep breath and nodded. "You're right. They didn't deserve any of this." We ordered pizza, their favorite, and set up an impromptu movie marathon in the living room. We built a fort with blankets and cushions, something we usually reserved for special occasions. Gradually, the children's spirits lifted. They giggled at the funny movie scenes, devoured the pizza, and eventually seemed to forget the morning's trauma. Around 4 in the afternoon, roughly 2 hours after we had left the wedding venue, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but the area code was local. "Hello," I answered, stepping into my home office for privacy. "Aurelius Parker." A deep male voice I didn't immediately recognize responded. "Yes, speaking. This is Harrison Williams, Ethan's father." My grip tightened on the phone. Harrison Williams calling me personally. This couldn't be good news. "Mr. Williams," I acknowledged, unsure what else to say. "I wanted to inform you directly." He continued, his tone businesslike but with an underlying edge. "The wedding is off. Cancelled. I thought you should know." I sank into my desk chair. "Cancelled? What happened?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I witnessed what occurred this morning. I was in my car when you arrived. I saw everything." The embarrassment flooded back, knowing that Harrison Williams had watched our humiliating rejection. Jordan's behavior was illuminating. Harrison continued, "As was your mother's. My son also observed the incident from a window overlooking the entrance. I'm sorry you had to see that," I said, not knowing what else to offer. "Don't apologize." Harrison's voice was firm. "You did nothing wrong." Ethan was disturbed by what he saw. We had noticed certain concerning behaviors from Jordan during the engagement, but this crossed a line for him. He said he couldn't marry someone who would treat family that way, especially children. I was stunned. So Ethan ended the engagement. Yes. There was quite a scene afterward. Harrison cleared his throat. Jordan blamed you, of course. Said you had ruined her special day by showing up uninvited. When Ethan pointed out that you had funded much of the wedding, she became irrational. Accused you of trying to control her life by throwing money around. I closed my eyes, imagining the chaos. I'm sorry for the disruption to your family, Mr. Williams. Harrison, please. His tone softened slightly. And again, this is not on you. Quite the opposite. I believe my son dodged what you Americans call a bullet. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of protectiveness toward Jordan. She has good qualities too, I said half-heartedly. She's just complicated. Complicated is not the word I would choose. Harrison replied dryly. But that's not why I called. I wanted to warn you. Jordan and Ethan left the venue about 20 minutes ago. Based on what I overheard, they're heading to your house. My stomach nodded. My house. Why? Jordan seems to think she can salvage the wedding. Convince Ethan to go through with it if she reconciles with you. It's not genuine remorse, Aurelius. It's desperation. I processed this information, uncertain how to respond. My advice, Harrison continued without waiting for my reply. Don't answer the door. This isn't about healing family wounds. This is about her trying to save her fairy tale ending. I appreciate the heads up, I said, genuinely grateful for the warning. One more thing, Harrison added. Ethan mentioned the significant sum you contributed to this fiasco. Rest assured, I intend to see that made right. Before I could respond, I heard the sound of tires on our gravel driveway. I think they've just arrived, I told Harrison. Thank you for calling. Remember what I said were his parting words. Don't open that door. I hung up and went to find Amelia, quickly explaining the situation. You're not seriously considering letting them in, she asked incredulously. After what they did to us, to our children. Before I could answer, there was a loud, insistent knocking at our front door. I peered through the living room window. Jordan was still in her wedding dress, though now it looked rumpled and slightly dirty at the hem. Mascara streaked her cheeks from crying. Beside her stood Ethan, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo, his bow tie undone and hanging loose around his neck. I think we should hear them out, I said to Amelia. Her eyes widened. Are you kidding me? After everything that happened today? I'm not saying forgive and forget, I clarified. I just want to face this head on. No more avoidance. No more pretending. Amelia sighed, knowing that determined look on my face. Fine, but the kids stay upstairs. I don't want them exposed to more drama. I agreed. We quickly ushered Noah and Sophia upstairs with their tablets, explaining that we had some grown-up business to take care of. The knocking had grown more insistent. Taking a deep breath, I opened the front door but remained firmly in the doorway, not inviting them in. Jordan's face was a mess of running makeup and red blotches. Aurelius. She choked out her voice, raspy from crying. Please, I need to talk to you. I crossed my arms. I'm listening. Can we come in? She asked, glancing anxiously at Ethan beside her. No, I said firmly. We can talk here. Jordan seemed taken aback by my directness, but pressed on. I'm so sorry about what happened, she said, fresh tears spilling. I didn't mean any of it. I was just stressed and not thinking clearly. You had security turn away my children with their photos marked, "Do not admit," I stated flatly. That requires premeditation, Jordan. That wasn't a spur-of-the-moment mistake. She wiped at her eyes, smearing her makeup further. I know it looks bad. I wanted a sophisticated wedding. I thought children might disrupt things. It wasn't personal. It was very personal, I countered. You admitted as much at the venue. You said you wanted me to know how it feels to be excluded. Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside her. I noticed he was maintaining a slight distance from Jordan, his body language stiff and closed off. I didn't mean that, Jordan insisted. I was just nervous about the wedding. You know how I get when I'm anxious. I say things I don't mean. I looked at her closely, searching for any sign of genuine remorse. All I saw was desperation and calculation. The wedding's off, isn't it? I asked, already knowing the answer from Harrison's call. Jordan's face crumpled. Ethan thinks I'm a terrible person now. He doesn't understand the pressure I was under. If you tell him it was all a misunderstanding that we've made up, maybe he'll reconsider. So there it was. Not an apology, but a request for me to help salvage her relationship. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said quietly. It was the culmination of years of resentment and manipulation. And frankly, I'm done with it. Jordan's expression hardened then, the vulnerability vanishing like a mask being removed. You owe me this, Aurelius. After all the years, you were Mom's favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Is that really how you remember our childhood? Because from where I stood, you were the one who got everything. The dance lessons, the summer camps, the new clothes, the car for your 16th birthday. I worked weekends at a grocery store to save for college, while Richard paid your tuition in full. That's not how it was, she protested, but there was uncertainty in her voice. Before we go any further, I said I want my money back. The $45,000 I contributed to the wedding. Jordan's eyes widened. That was a gift. And it's gone anyway, spent on deposits and vendors. Most of it non-refundable. It wasn't a gift, I corrected her. It was a loan predicated on the idea that it would help heal our relationship. You took the money under false pretenses. I can't just produce $45,000 out of thin air, she exclaimed. Ethan, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. You told me your brother's contribution was a wedding gift, he said, looking at Jordan with newfound suspicion. You never mentioned it was a loan, or that there were strings attached. Jordan turned to him, panic in her eyes. It wasn't like that. Aurelius is just angry and rewriting history. I was done with the conversation. I think we've said all that needs to be said. I wish you both well, but I don't want either of you in my life anymore. As I began to close the door, Jordan became frantic. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling Mom. She'll make you see reason. Before I could object, she had dialed and put the phone on speaker. Jordan, how's everything going? Did you find Aurelius? My mother's voice came through clearly. Mom, he's being completely unreasonable. Jordan whined. He's demanding his money back and refusing to help fix things with Ethan. My mother's sigh was audible. Aurelius, are you there? Please be sensible about this. Jordan made a mistake, but it's not worth destroying her happiness over. Family forgives. I felt a surge of anger at her selective application of family loyalty. Where was this concern for family when Jordan was humiliating my children this morning? Where was your intervention then, Mom? That's different. She hedged. Jordan was under tremendous pressure. A bride on her wedding day deserves some leeway. No, I said firmly. What she deserves is consequences for her actions. Both of you do. I'm done being the family ATM while being treated as an afterthought. "You're being dramatic," my mother dismissed. "This isn't about money." "You're right," I agreed. "It's about respect. And I haven't received any from either of you in a very long time." I turned back to Jordan and Ethan. "This is my final position. I want no further contact with you, Jordan, unless it's to arrange repayment of the money you took under false pretenses. You're welcome to sue me if you think you have a case, but I'm confident about how that would go." Jordan's face contorted with rage. "You selfish bastard. You've ruined everything. My one chance at happiness. And you couldn't just play along for one day." Ethan cleared his throat, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Jordan, that's enough." He turned to me. "Mr. Parker, I apologize for my part in this situation. I had no idea about the financial arrangement or the planned exclusion of your family today. That's not who I am or who I want to be associated with." Jordan gasped at him. "Ethan, whose side are you on?" "The side of basic human decency," he replied quietly. "And Mr. Parker is right. He should be repaid." "With what money?" Jordan screeched. "I don't have $45,000. Ethan looked at her steadily. "I do. And I'll make sure Mr. Parker is compensated in full." I was surprised by his offer. "That's not necessary, Ethan. This isn't your debt to pay." "I insist," he said with quiet dignity. "It's the right thing to do." Jordan stared at him in disbelief, then turned back to me with venom in her eyes. "You've turned him against me too. Just like you've turned everyone against me my whole life." I shook my head, suddenly feeling very tired. "No, Jordan. You've done that all on your own." With that, I closed the door, firmly shutting out her angry protests. Through the window, I watched as Ethan walked back to his car alone, leaving Jordan standing on our porch in her wedding dress, shouting into her phone. As I turned away from the window, I found Amelia watching me with a mixture of concern and pride. "You did good," she said, wrapping her arms around me. "That couldn't have been easy." "Actually," I said, feeling lighter than I had in months, "it was the easiest thing I've done in years." 6 months passed after the wedding that never was. In that time, I made several difficult but necessary changes to heal from decades of toxic family dynamics. The most significant was cutting contact with both Jordan and my mother. After years of manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional extortion, I finally recognized that true family doesn't treat you like an ATM one moment and an inconvenience the next. It wasn't an easy decision, especially regarding my mother, but it was essential for my mental health and for protecting my true family, Amelia, and our children. 3 weeks after the wedding fiasco, a certified check for $45,000 arrived in the mail. The accompanying note was simple, with apologies for the misunderstanding. Harrison Williams. I was surprised it came from Ethan's father rather than Ethan himself, but I appreciated the gesture nonetheless. Amelia suggested we use the returned money for something meaningful, something that would help us heal from the ordeal. We decided on a family trip to Europe, something we had always dreamed of but had postponed due to work commitments and financial considerations. For 3 weeks, we explored the ancient streets of Rome, the art museums of Paris, and the fairy tale castles of Germany. Watching Noah's eyes widen at the sight of the Colosseum and hearing Sophia's delighted giggles as she fed pigeons in Venice's street-marked square healed my heart in ways I hadn't known were possible. Away from the drama and toxic dynamics that had defined so much of my life, I reconnected with what truly mattered: the family we had built, the love we shared, and the joy we found in simple moments together. Upon returning home, I threw myself into my work and family life with renewed appreciation. I coached Noah's Little League team, attended Sophia's dance recitals, and had weekly date nights with Amelia. The pain of Jordan's betrayal gradually faded, replaced by gratitude for what I had, rather than resentment for what I'd lost. About 5 months after the incident, I was having dinner at a steakhouse with a potential client when I spotted Harrison Williams at a corner table. Our eyes met, and after a moment's hesitation, he nodded in acknowledgement. Once my business dinner concluded, I stopped by his table on my way out. "Mr. Williams." I greeted him. "Harrison, please." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Join me for a moment." I sat down, curious about what he might have to say. "I hope you received the check," he said, sipping his scotch. "I did. Thank you. Though I'm curious why it came from you, and not Ethan." Harrison set down his glass. "Ethan wanted to pay it personally, but I insisted. Consider it my apology for not intervening sooner. I saw the warning signs in Jordan's behavior months before the wedding, but said nothing." "How is Ethan doing?" I asked, genuinely curious about the young man who had shown unexpected character that day. "Better," Harrison replied. "The experience was educational, if painful. He's focusing on his work now, showing more interest in the family business than he ever has before." "And Jordan?" I couldn't help asking, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Harrison's expression tightened slightly. "She made several attempts to reconcile with Ethan in the weeks following the incident. When those failed, she tried a different approach." "What do you mean?" "She threatened to sue, claiming emotional distress and breach of promise." Harrison gave a dry chuckle. "Her legal counsel quickly advised against it when our attorneys provided the evidence we had compiled of her problematic behavior. I wasn't surprised. It was exactly the kind of vindictive action Jordan would take when cornered." "Did you know," Harrison continued, "that she's now working as an administrative assistant at one of my subsidiary companies?" This did surprise me. "No, I had no idea." "You hired her?" In a manner of speaking, Harrison's eyes held a glint of satisfaction. "I made it a condition of the check I sent you. She works off the debt, learning some valuable life lessons in the process. My office manager reports she's actually showing promise now that she's had to earn her position without family connections or manipulation." I wasn't sure how to feel about that arrangement, but I appreciated Harrison's intention. "That's unexpectedly kind of you." "Not kindness," he corrected. "Justice. And perhaps a chance at redemption, if she chooses to take it." 2 weeks after that encounter, I received a surprise phone call from my mother. Her voice sounded smaller, more hesitant than I remembered. "Aurelius," she began, "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I owe you an apology." I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "I've favored Jordan her whole life," she admitted. "I told myself it was because you were stronger, more independent. But the truth is, I took you for granted because I knew you would always do the right thing while Jordan needed to be managed and placated." It was the most honest thing my mother had ever said to me about our family dynamic. "I'm not asking for forgiveness right away," she continued. "I know I've damaged our relationship perhaps beyond repair, but I'd like the chance to try to make amends, to be a proper mother and grandmother if you'll allow it." Over the following months, my mother and I slowly rebuilt our relationship on new, healthier terms. There were boundaries now, clear expectations about respect and consideration. She made genuine efforts with Amelia and the children, showing up consistently for Noah's baseball games and sending thoughtful, personalized gifts for birthdays rather than the impersonal gift cards of the past. As for Jordan, I heard through my mother that she had moved to another state, starting fresh in a new city. She never contacted me directly, which was for the best. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. The money we received back from Harrison Williams did indeed fund our European vacation, but more importantly, it funded a new beginning, a life where I recognized my own worth and refused to accept less than the respect I deserved, even from family. One evening, as Amelia and I sat on our back porch watching Noah and Sophia play in the yard, She asked me if I had any regrets about how everything had turned out. Not regrets exactly, I replied after a moment's reflection, more like lessons learned. I spent so many years trying to buy Jordan's love and acceptance, never realizing that genuine relationships can't be purchased. They're built through consistent respect, honesty, and mutual care. I watched my children's carefree play, their laughter carrying across the twilight air. I also learned that family isn't defined by blood or legal ties. It's defined by how people treat you when it matters most. Sometimes the family we're born into fails us, but the family we choose and create sustains us. Amelia squeezed my hand. That's a lesson worth the price we paid for it. She was right. Despite the pain and betrayal, I emerged from the experience with greater clarity about what truly matters in life. I learned to establish healthy boundaries, to recognize toxic behavior patterns, and most importantly, to value myself enough to walk away from relationships that bring only pain, even when those relationships are with family. In the end, Jordan's betrayal became an unexpected gift, freeing me from a lifetime of seeking approval I would never receive and redirecting that energy toward the people who truly deserved it, the ones who loved me not for what I could give them but simply for who I was. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who consistently took advantage of your generosity? Do you think blood relationships should be preserved at all costs? Or is it sometimes healthier to walk away? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose your own well-being, even when family is involved. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.